Let's go back a memory lane on this car. The year is 1991 and Mercedes-Benz is sitting opposite Mitsubishi, and the deal they're discussing is to build one of the first sports utility car under the Mercedes-Benz badge. And 3 years down the line in 1994, Mercedes-Benz went back to Mitsubishi and told them, guys, it's not you, it is me. I want to go and do this on my own. You are good, I love you, but this thing cannot work. So that's how Mercedes-Benz ended up building this car alone. And at that time, BMW was killing it with the M badge. So Mercedes-Benz thought it like, why don't you also put an M on our car so that we can sell like BMW? See what I did there? That didn't fly because BMW decided to put a stop. So they went to a court and stopped Mercedes-Benz from using the M badge alone. And the guys at Mercedes-Benz were like, tatuweza kweli. So they came up with a genius idea. And the idea was, why don't we just add an L on the M? And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the birth of the Mercedes-Benz ML. Coming down to 2015, Mercedes-Benz got tired of the ML because, you know, why don't we create something unique, something special that we can enjoy owning? And they changed the naming nomenclature of what the ML was, and it was updated now with a G. And G here was a design word that cut across the entire sports utility genre of Mercedes-Benz. From the G class, the G, anything that has a sports utility badge would go with the G, and then it will have an extension. But they kept the L, which was one of the most useless extension word to add on the G. It meant nothing, it did nothing. And in 2017, ladies and gentlemen, to rival the Range Rover Sports, the Land Rover Range Rover Sports, I give you the Mercedes-Benz GLE. Welcome to another exciting episode of Conversations Kanisa. I hope you're having an awesome Sunday. And today, as promised on the last review, we have the 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLE. It's just not your normal GLE. This is the Coupe AMG package. It's at this point that I ask you to sit down, relax. If you haven't subscribed, please take a second and mark that subscription to be on. Turn all the notification on because it can only get better from here onwards. This review has been made possible by KDG Imports. Again, I'll remind you, along Gong Road opposite Prestige. Tafuta jamaa anaitwa IBRAH. He will always hook you up with better deals. If he doesn't give you a discount, make sure you call me and I'll make sure that he gets you a better deal on any car that they have in stock. So let's get into the review of the Mercedes-Benz GLE. So the Mercedes-Benz GLE sits between the GLC and the GLS. So the new nomenclature is Mercedes-Benz designed their sports utility cars, basing them on their normal cars like the sedan. So you have the C-Class, the GLC is based on the C-Class, the GLE is based on the E-Class, and the GLS is based on the S-Class. But they are all sports utility vehicles. So let's get into it. An aggressive look. This is the MG package. So you get a quite intimidating look with a huge Mercedes-Benz logo that houses the Distronic cruise control system. The sensor is right behind here. You have your MG logo, an aggressive bumper, chrome appendages, and I've always told you, if you see chrome appendages, there's some bit of luxury going on. LED headlights, which are very bright, with an LED strip here to give you the normal daylight running. And you know, this car is just awesome and beautiful. One thing I'll tell you about this car is, being a coupe, it's wider and slightly sits down in comparison to the wagon style of the same car. So let's go to the side profile of this car and talk about what does this car bring to the table, because that's the question that you guys are asking most of the time. And when you come to the side profile of this car, one thing that you'll notice immediately is how huge the tires are. So you're running size 21 size wheels, both at the front and the rear. But something interesting is at the front, you have 21 275, and then when you come back to the rear, you have 21 375. So the rear is quite wider, and that gives this car the wider stand I told you about. If you compare to the normal GLE, that is the wagon style, this one is wider. And what makes it more wider is these side steps. They just make this car look beautiful and aggressive. It's like it can go off-road, but it cannot go off-road. You get what I mean? It can go off-road, but it cannot go off-road. It makes the styling of this car beautiful. If you come to the side mirror, there are these two LED strips that join into one that just make Mercedes-Benz beautiful and awesome. Let's talk about the suspension of this car. So you can buy this car with the two suspension modes. One is you can get it in air suspension, both at the front and the rear, and you can get it in this mode, which has your normal coilover suspension. So double wishbone at the front, independent mat-link suspension at the rear. And I like the kawaida suspension, even if you find it on luxury cars like this one, because it sits in quite comfortably in our Kenyan ecosystem. You get a bit of more reliable parts and rigid parts and hard parts that can make you live with your car without a hassle. But if you go for air suspension, trust me and believe me that on a Mercedes-Benz, the air suspension will last you anything between 250,000 kilometers and above. You understand? That's how air suspension is quite reliable on a Mercedes-Benz. Unless you hit a pothole, and a huge one for that matter, and you blow up your air suspension. But air suspension on any car, be it the Range Rover that we reviewed here last, it's among the most reliable suspension if you can just take care of it. So let's move to the rear of this particular car, where I can show you how beautiful the design of this car. You see the side profile of this car, as it flows down to the rear, there is that coupe design, unlike the wagon style, and that makes this car quite beautiful and attractive. I can tell you for a fact, currently in the Kenyan market right now, people prefer buying this coupe style of this car, with this coupe at the rear that makes it perfectly beautiful. And something else that makes this rear just, come out in a beautiful scene is the rear taillights that break into two. Very huge, very attractive. And something else, and I gave you as a secret, on a Mercedes-Benz, safety is quite important. So they've made these lights to have dual mode in terms of how bright they are. So during the day, these rear tail lights will be more brighter so that you can have better visibility of this car when it's ahead of you. But look at that. How beautiful is that? Come on. I like it. So you have your GLE badge. I've told you about the GLE. The L is for nothing. G is a group of cars that fall in the sports utility level of Mercedes-Benz, and the E is based on the Mercedes-Benz. Then you have your 350D. So the 350D, it simply means that this car comes with a 3-liter turbocharged diesel plant, which we'll talk about when we get at the front of that car. And then here you have your 4MATIC. So the 4MATIC badge is the all-wheel drive system that you get on Mercedes-Benz. This one is not as sophisticated as the newer one that will come from 2019, which is called 4MATIC Plus. And I've told you all about that in the review of the GLC 63S. If you haven't watched that review, I'll ask Fabian to put that link here so you can go and watch and see how better or how improved the 4MATIC Plus is on the newer versions of this particular car. Let's talk about practicality. And when we talk about practicality, I'll remind you again, the chrome is going on. Kuna hiyo chrome in a cut across that. You go down, you have your chrome again just below your bumper, your rear bumper. It's something else that Mercedes does. And if you complain, but there's nothing you can do about it, is you have fake exhausts, because the real one are right down there. You see, the real one are blowing down. These ones are for aesthetics. Mercedes-Benz. So let's stop whining. So let's get into practicality and see how practical is this car. Look at this. If you notice, so this logo here will change position. At this point, it's just a 3-pointed star. You can look at it, it looks at you, you enjoy looking at it. But when you're reversing this car, it actually tilts and produces a reverse camera to give you better visibility. The visibility is important because these are coupe. It has among the poorest visibility across the board. Whether you're buying an X6 or this one, still the same thing. But we can open our boot electronically from there, and it provides one of the hugest practical boot space you can get on an SUV. This one is among the best. It's huge, and what makes it huge is the fact that it's actually lifting up the entire, it's more of like a lift back. You can see all that, rear tail, it goes all the way up. So it provides a huge practical space. And something that makes this more interesting, just look at that. It's quite huge. You have a hump here, and this car is quite lifted above. So, you know, look, it's getting to my waist. So carrying stuff and putting here, for people who are elderly or old or not as strong as I am, will find it a bit of a problem. But for a guy who is active, you know, you won't struggle that much. Well, something that makes this car more special is hapa chini, it comes with a full spare wheel. Quite interesting. Right now, from 2017 going onwards, it's actually a good thing to find a spare wheel inside a car, because right now we're just working with your tire repair kits, blah 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 blah. So let's talk about the engines and transmission that you get on this particular car, and I will tell you about some of the unique special things in the interior of this car that make this car not only luxurious but also special and interesting for any person that wants to buy it. Under the hood of the GLE 350D, you find a 3000 turbocharger, and the turbocharger in this particular engine is a variable geometry turbo. So it means it gives you still good ambient boost at low RPM as well as high RPM. Basically, it can optimize itself to work under any circumstances to just reduce your turbo lag. So that's what you get under the hood of this particular car. And this engine is the code name the 642, the OM 642. It's a legendary engine. It's actually an engine that you'll find in a lot of cars, from E-classes, from even the sprinters, the cargo carriers. You still get this planet. Something special about this engine, I'll tell you, is if you find a manufacturer using the same engine across different cars, it actually speaks of its reliability. And this is the third gen, so it means it has gone through revisions and it has a lot of upgrades and updates to just make sure that it's reliable and robust. So something you need to know, in the current era of buying cars, especially diesel, there are two things that you'll find quite key in most of those cars. Not only the Mercedes-Benz, but it cuts across the entire scope when it comes to diesel cars, and that is emissions. So you still have your AdBlue, and AdBlue is quite cheap. You can actually buy, I think it's 5 liters for only 2,500, and that is something you can add all the time when it needs you to do so after a long period of time. I'm sure there are guys who've driven their cars for 3 years without the AdBlue light coming on and telling you to top up. And something else that you need to know is it has a DPF. So again, diesel particle filter, to make sure your emissions are cleaner and your environment is clean. This is the type of car that I will tell you for a fact that do not try to delete those things. Just learn to work around them. You know, you can do them in the Mazdas and all that, but this one, unless you're going for more power and you're modifying this car to perform better, I believe the DPF can still hold up in the Kenyan market space, especially around this particular car, because unlike the Mazdas, the system around DPF regeneration of the Mercedes-Benz is quite different. So Mazda will keep their engine, you know, for a long time before they regenerate. But with Mercedes-Benz, they do what we call short interval regeneration. So it doesn't allow the carbon buildup to be there for a long period of time. Something else you need to know about this engine is it comes with 2 catalytic converters, again, for emissions. So emissions, newer, cleaner environment, that's all you get when you're buying a diesel plant. But in terms of power and torque, this will churn out 620 Newton meters of torque and 255 HP. And oh my, those power figures are awesome. When it comes to fuel economy, this can give you an average of 14 kilometers to a liter. Let's talk about what this engine is paired to. So it's paired to a 9-speed G-tronic gearbox from Mercedes-Benz. And listen guys, Mercedes-Benz with their transmission, they have moved from the 4-speed, 5-speed, 7-speed, and now we're in the 9-speed. And believe me when I say, if there's one gearbox that has undergone refinement and engineering, nothing comes second to this transmission that you get on this particular car. I know guys will argue about the ZF. I'm talking about reliability and overall completeness of a gearbox. This gives quite good credibility as well, just like the ZF transmission. Paired to 4MATIC, because that's what you get as an all-wheel drive system that pushes power down to the 4 wheels. You get a formidable sports utility car that you can drive for an adventure. So what other engine options do you get when you plan to buy the GLE Mercedes-Benz? So on the diesel side, you only get an extra engine, which is a 2-liter OM 654, which is quite good in terms of fuel economy, but this one gives you a balance of power and fuel economy as well. When you go to the petrol side, you start all the way from the 3.5 276, which is a V6 petrol engine, or you can get the 3-liter red top, which is a V6 with a bi-turbo. The first one has only a single turbo, all the way to the M157, which is the 5.5 bi-turbo AMG 63S version of the GLE. So you have a variety. It comes down to what you like. So best with the pocket and how much you can spend, this car will give you from the minimal power output to the maximum power output. So make your choice. What are the common problems you'll find when you buy this particular car? Especially with this plant, there are quite minimal problems, to say the least. This engine, in fact, on the 3rd generation, provides a lot of reliability and credibility when it comes to the mode of use. So nobody has said anything about this engine so far. Nobody has complained about it, but everything that people have said is it gives you enough power, enough fuel economy, and you'll just drive and enjoy this particular car. And talking about engine problems and what they provide in the Kenyan market space, I'm happy to tell you and remind you about CARSURE.Africa. If you're planning to sell your car, at your own price, we will not mark it up, we are not charging you anything. You are free to log on to CARSURE.Africa and book a free pre-sale inspection where your car will be listed on CARSURE.Africa, which currently, as we speak, it has more than 500 cars. So if you're looking for a car that has a supportive document like a pre-purchase inspection report, because if you book a pre-purchase inspection, you're going to pay 5,000. But if you go to buy an inspection report on CARSURE.Africa, you might spend anything between 550 shillings to maybe 2,000 Kenya shillings. So you save better. But if you're planning to sell your car, everything is free. Book your pre-sale inspection for free. Bring your car the waterfront current. Our engineers will go through and your car will appear on the marketplace for free. And the good thing is, you are the one who will receive all the calls and you're the one who will control the price of the car. And once you guys agree with the person who is willing to buy the car with the inspection report attached to it, then you guys are good to go. Mine is to make sure that your car ownership experience, both to the seller and the buyer, is secured. Before I get to the rear of the Mercedes-Benz GLE and show you how beautiful and awesome the luxury features of this car is, I want to show you something that is more interesting, that makes this car a perfect choice ya watu wa Murima, because they're the one who like carrying a lot of luggages. Now check this one out. You can actually pull this. You remember the review we did for the Wish and you guys laughed about it? Now look at this Mercedes-Benz 2017. Pull that seat comes there, okay? And then you can pull this knob up and you can twist this one. Watu wa Murima, watu wa Murima. Hey, look at that, my friend. Pull that one again, lift that one up. Pull that one, twist this one up. Now, do you see what is happening there? That is called practicality with an extra pinch of salt. Something that reminds me, that guy wa Equatorial Guinea maybe did not see the GLE, because if he saw the GLE, I'm looking at like 4 or 5 positions here that can really work, eh? Are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? Yeah, let's not get into it. So let's take this seat back and see the awesome luxury features that you get on the Mercedes-Benz GLE. So one thing I like about this is it means you can actually recline your seat as well, so that you can get your comfort features. But who wants to sit upwards or upright? Let's get into it. Of course, the first feeling you get is the premiumness of this car. Leather all around you. Something else I'm missing in, I'm only having a net here. I don't know, do we store anything here? But the Land Rover Range Rover Sport had your aeroplane design flappers here that will nicely hold the laptop. But here you don't get that, so you have that. Leather on the side, nice speakers. It's stupid, but you have something here to hang your suit. Especially come when wakili. You know, wakili is like my friend Magotsi. Comes to the office with a tracksuit, but he always has a suit in the car. So I don't know where or to what time he wears it. It's hanged here. So you have that provision here. Something else, you get your heated seats, both for this guy on this side and the guy on this side. And let me lift this seat up because there's something I need to show you as well. For the third row, for the third person, I don't know, there's a little hump here. It might not be as comfortable as you'll want it. But I don't know, a small guy can fit in, but this car is not meant to carry, you know, those guys. It's a car you carry 2 people, but if you have a kid, it will work well. Something else, 2 cup holders, but you don't get heated seats buttons on this one like the Range Rover, but you get them here, which is quite nice. I don't know, I have a vibe, and I'm going to confess, I don't feel that this particular car is as premium as the Range Rover Sport we reviewed. I believe the Range Rover Sport has better feeling of premiumness in the interior, but these are Mercedes. It doesn't mean that like they're far apart. In terms of practicality, I have quite a good legroom there. I'm 6'2", I remind you again, and don't laugh about it. It's serious. If you see me in person, I'm actually 6'8". I'm just lying that I'm 6'2". Okay, so good legroom. This being a coupe, you'll imagine that this will be not good for a tall person. I don't know, I'm thinking maybe if you're 6'8", but I've done a good design where you can see I'm still able to, you know, comfortably fit in. I don't know if a guy is tall, maybe there. Anyway, you get the vibe. So it's a practical, comfortable car to haul people at this back of seat, and you enjoy the ride quite comfortably. So let's check this car at the front as we enjoy the panoramic sunroof that is actually active, meaning you can lift it off entirely and you can stand there na uombe watu kura, uambie tutatenga. So right now let's check out the front of this car and see how practical or how luxurious it is comparing it to the Range Rover Sport. So let's start off with storage compartment that you get when you buy the GLE 350D. You get your place to put your spectacles, you get your glove compartment, which is cramped up but quite decent to use. You also get your normal Mercedes-Benz 2-split center console that provides another extra space, USB, and something else that will provide an extra input to this infotainment screen, which is quite small for this particular car, but we'll discuss that. Is you can get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well by the virtue of connecting to that USB port there. Something else you get two cup holders hapo with a huge door bin that can fit in a 1-liter bottle, both on those sides, and that makes this car quite good in terms of usability. If you're carrying people here, you're carrying your wife, you're carrying your girlfriend, you're carrying your mother, you're carrying anybody, the practicality in this car is quite beautiful. Let's talk about the luxury features. One, you get a panoramic sunroof that is quite active. As I said earlier, you can retract it and open it entirely to protrude your head up and promise people fake things. Number two that you get as luxury features, heated seats at the front, both for passenger and driver. And something else that you get a 3-zone climate control, so dual at the front and single at the rear, which is quite interesting. These are not newer things to Mercedes-Benz, so that's why I'm just scanning them through. But something that you get that is more special, that you don't find commonly in many Mercedes, is the Harman Kardon infotainment system. On the previous review of the Range Rover Sport, we had the Meridian sound system, and it sounded quite beautiful and awesome. So here again, you find your Harman Kardon. I don't know, give me in the comments, between Harman Kardon and Meridian, which one are you going home with? Are you the Harman Kardon guy or the Meridian guy? The winner, or the guys who get most likes, will definitely get a hoodie or a t-shirt from Mr. Mbugo himself. Mbugo will make sure he delivers a t-shirt to one of you. So give me your comments and your feedback pale chini. I'll gladly go through them, and then we can appoint one final winner. So let's talk about something that is more interesting. One is the infotainment system. So what you get here is not the newer version. It's not the MBUX. MBUX is the software that runs behind this. What you get here is an updated version of the Mercedes-Benz Command. And this one, as I said earlier, it has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay enabled, which is quite interesting. But I don't find it quite fancy to have this small thing that looks at you like this car is cheap, because this car will set you back 10 million. This one here, nah. But something that you enjoy when you use this is the reverse camera. The 360 camera on this car is pure niceness. It's quite clear, it's quite bright, and it makes it easy for you to maneuver this car in any location, to say the least. Something that you get that, I don't know, Bug was fighting over this, because I gave you an opportunity to drive this car, and he was telling me like the steering feels huge. Nimunono, you know, it fits into your hands quite well. I don't know, for me I love it because it gives me the idea that I'm in control. But if you love smaller, thinner steering wheel, then that will be a bummer. But something that I hate, and I'll tell you when I'm driving this car, is how this car turns around. But I'll give you the luxury of knowing that the steering wheel can be adjusted electronically, the Mercedes-Benz way. So you can tilt it up, down, you can pull it towards you electronically. The Range Rover, we did it mechanically. So let's drive this car on the road and confirm Does it drive as good as the Range Rover Sport? And does it give you better driving dynamics and better feelings? Yani, do you feel better in the Mercedes-Benz? Unaweza toka kulilia kwa Range Rover so that you transport yourself and maybe try the Mercedes for 1 million less? Because the Range Rover will set you back 11 million. This will set you back 10 mic. Remember, the Range Rover Sport ni 2018. This one is 2017. Let's drive this car and confirm all this. Instantly you start driving the Mercedes-Benz GLE 350D, you realize it's such a huge car. It's big. Just like the Range Rover Sport, I'm sitting quite high in a commanding position, which makes me feel a bit powerful, which is a cool thing. But one thing I love about all Mercedes-Benz is the fact that they can transfer all their necessary feelings across the entire lineup of their cars. Meaning, if you are to drive an E250 and then you came to drive this car, you will feel similarly almost the same in terms of how this car drives. So the flow of energy, the flow of the driving dynamics is almost close to similar, unless you're going up the rank. Now you're going after the bigger engines like GLE 43 and maybe the GLE 63 and the 63S. Then there you can start now feeling the raw power. But again, across the lineup, if you're to buy an E63S, again, same feeling across the board. That's something I love about this car. But something that is so obvious, unlike the Range Rover Sport, is, I'm feeling a bit crammed up. The spaces and the walls are closer to me, and that has been made worse by the fact that this is also a coupe, so your visibility, especially at the rear, is not quite good. But again, those are things when you are going to buy a coupe, a coupe styled car. And funny enough, a coupe styled version of this particular car costs you more than the wagon style. So I don't know, is it that people love the coupe style? I'm not sure. The build quality is awesome, as always, is Mercedes-Benz. The sound dampening is perfect. It's awesome. The driver agility of this car is so good. And one thing I've realized is when you're going through uneven surfaces, it kind of, throws you around. This thing weighs around 2.2 tons. So when you're going through uneven surfaces, kidogo it throws you around. And I don't know. That's something I don't like. But when you're on a smooth surface, a smooth road, it's quite perfect. It's what you will call a proper highway cruiser. It's a car you drive, just enjoy the perfect drive. And talking about enjoying the driving experience, let's talk about the driving modes that you get. So the first one is you have a snow driving mode, and that one is for low traction launch, when your surfaces is wet, when you're dealing with challenging surfacing, and then that's what you use as a driving mode to have that low traction so that it doesn't skid or steer off and get you into an accident. But when you want to drive into normal cruising mode, you snap her into comfort. When you put it in comfort, there's something that is called throttle mapping. So the throttle has been demapped to make sure that you don't access the maximum power, 620 Newton meters of torque, and the 255 at low RPM. So it waits until you gain a bit of throttle pressing or RPM, and then that's when now you start accessing your power. That is when you put her in comfort. But when you snap her into sport like I've done now, she becomes instantly a monster. And see that, look at that. And today it has rained a little bit, so the surface is a bit wet, but I'm lucky I have the 4MATIC all-wheel drive system, and this is where the 4MATIC was designed actually to act. But when you take the corners now with this car, you start to realize it's a huge car, and it has a bit of body roll, but it's not significant. But again, weighing 2.2 tons and taking corners the way this car takes is just perfect. The only thing now we're here to do is confirm how does this car actually accelerate from 0 to 100. And I've come to a nice spot. Let me go to a complete stop, because we need to confirm. We need to match up to the specs of the Range Rover Sport, considering all of them are coming with a 3000cc turbocharged engine, putting out almost close numbers, because the Range is doing 248, this is doing 255, the Range is doing 600 Newton meters of torque, this is doing 620. I'm curious to see who has the advantage, who has the upper hand. Is it the 8-speed ZF? Is it the 9-speed G-tronic? So I've snapped her into sport mode. She's quite locked in. So when I lock her in sport mode, what it does, it changes the throttle mapping, so I have a better responsive throttle, and the steering feel also firms up. Just make sure that you have better sporty driving feel. So let me confirm whether We are good. So, come on. That was a perfect launch. Woo! Come on. Mercedes-Benz. Handbrake. Wow. Wow. That was a very good launch. 4MATIC all-wheel drive system is beautiful. Let me see. So 0 to 100 in 8.03 seconds on a wet day, guys. The road is a bit wet. I think if this guy is rated at 7 seconds, 0 to 100, so hammering 8.03 seconds on a wet day, I think that's perfect. We don't need nothing more to confirm that. We break from 100 to 0 in 5.29 seconds, which is pretty good again on a wet day. If this will have been a dry day, I believe we'll have gotten better numbers. So I'm quite happy about this. Come on, the diesel plant is just awesome. One thing we can all agree is Mercedes-Benz did a good job in terms of harnessing the power that this engine puts out and transferring it down to the all-wheel drive system. And that is what has made this car perform better. On a dry day, I believe we'll have done better numbers. But because it's a wet day, let's keep the 8.03 seconds, 0 to 100, which is perfect. As I said earlier in my review, let me be categorical in this. Mercedes-Benz have mastered the art of creating awesome and beautiful transmissions, and the 9G-tronic is something special because it shifts so smoothly. Understanding that this is a Mercedes-Benz transmission, they're not borrowing from other companies like the way Range Rover will borrow the ZF transmission from another manufacturer. I think we need to give it to Mercedes-Benz for creating something beautiful. If you're buying the 63S version of the GLE, have comfort in knowing that it's just the same transmission but with a multi-clutch system, which is quite beautiful, but it's slightly slow when it comes to shifting. You can't compare it to a dual clutch transmission, but it makes the work done. Actually, people have been complaining that the only thing that lets down the 63S is the transmission. When it comes to shifting, it's a bit slower when it comes to the proper competitive shifting. But for normal driving use, like this application here, the transmission is smooth and perfect. Smooth and perfect. You can't even complain. You can't even know it's shifting unless you go into sport mode and now have it just go up with gears. Then you can feel that sporty feel of shifting up and downwards. Again, the steering wheel, it's big enough, it's accommodative enough. You feel like you're holding a car in your hands. I believe Mercedes did this because this car is huge, so they wanted to transfer the idea of having a huge car translated on your steering feel. So you have a quite significant amount of steering wheel, and the way you hold it makes you feel you're driving a massive car. I love that. Some people, it might be a bummer, but for me, I'm quite good with it. The only thing I don't like about it is when you have to make a turn, like right now, just look, I want to make a 90. I have to turn it. Like the steering angle turn is so high for you to achieve a turn. That is something I don't like. I wish it would have been big, then they will just make it easier, or they will shorten the turning intervals of the steering system. That will be perfect. But away from that, it's a perfect car. So let's do value for money and confirm. How does the Mercedes-Benz GLE 350D stack up against competition? Does it make a better or a superior value proposition against its competition? Let's confirm that. And that is the story of the Mercedes-Benz GLE 350D. The idea of it having come all that way to be this car that you've seen is quite interesting. It shows the dedication that Mercedes-Benz has in developing and building awesome and beautiful cars. But let's talk about value for money. So why would you pay 10 million Kenya shillings to buy the Mercedes-Benz GLE 350D? Number one, it gives you the power and the fuel economy at the same time. So it's a balanced engine paired to a good transmission that is quite reliable. So that coupling of those two gives you quite good credibility or a driver experience on the road. Number two, it's a Mercedes-Benz. The 3-pointed star carries some weight. You get some respect. You get some, feeling when you drive that car. And that badge, of course, will also set you back significant amount of money, if you know what I mean. But most importantly, being a 2017 unit in comparison to the Range Rover Sport that we did in the previous episode, which will set you back 11 million Kenya shillings, this one will set you back 10 million Kenya shillings. That's a million Kenya shillings bob less. Does it give you everything you'll want in comparison to what the Range Rover was offering? Yes, you get a bit more. You lose significantly little things here and there, but in overall, you still get an awesome build quality in the Mercedes-Benz GLE 350D. I've been your host, Papa Scoff himself, Ibrahim Toloi. Follow Conversation across the entire platforms, that is X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And while you're at it, remember to also follow me at a personal level, Ibrahim Toloi, across all those platforms as well. I'll appreciate if you get me, like kama TikTok niko na only 20 followers. Please get me to 100k. I will buy you guys something. Na mtoe sadaka. Tiny pesa pale kwa description. Toeni sadaka. Siwezi kuwa napiga Please. Sawa. Bye.